Hi, Melissa. You can start the show now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our third Thursday mental health talk titled Don't Call Me a Snowflake. My name is Melissa Lin, representing Yana, You're Not Alone Southeast Asia Mental Health Initiative, and I'm your facilitator for tonight. But before we begin our talk, a gentle reminder to all our participants for tonight. Please ensure that your video is on and keep your microphone muted throughout the session. You may unmute yourself once the moderator prompts you to turn in speaking during the question and answer segment. Always remember that everyone can see you. Avoid any exaggerated and unnecessary movement. Please observe proper behavior and be attentive. And our last house rule for tonight, if you have any inquiries, you may send messages on our chat box and our moderator will get back to you. For those who are first-timer and unfamiliar with the National Coalition for Mental Wellbeing, I'll be giving you a short introduction. We are a coalition of various non-government organizations, public institutions, companies, and individuals dedicated to champion and support the development of our national mental health and well-being. This coalition is initiated by the Rotary Club with 4 primary focus includes fighting stigma and discrimination, suicide prevention, mental and emotional wellness promotion, and youth and adolescents care. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Monesh, Vice Chairman of District Mental Health Initiative, to brief on the latest development of National Coalition of Mental Wellbeing. Dr. Monesh, stage is yours.
It's not here.
Yeah, we don't have Dr. Monesh in yet.
Yeah, Dr. Monesh is just logging in now. Facilitator, you might want to introduce further.
All right, so I would like to read to you the mission of the National Coalition Mental Wellbeing. The mission is to promote mental health initiative through education, support, and advocacy. Our vision is to support the community with better understanding of mental health, provide resources and learning opportunities for early intervention, and advocate improved support for mental health care. And our value is to create relevance in our initiative, leverage on collective capabilities, and value the dignity of others. Is Dr. Monesh with us already?
Yes, he is.
He is. Hi, Dr. Monesh, the stage is yours. So please brief us on the latest updates on the National Coalition. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Dr. Dixon. And I'm Dr. Monesh. I am also a part of the District Action Group on Mental Health Initiatives, which is a part of the team of the National Coalition of Mental Wellbeing. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate Dr. Dixon here on organizing these Thursday talks. I have managed to attend most of it, I think. And I find all the topics very relatable and really informative. And I'm sure a lot of those who join us have learned a lot from all the topics that we have had on these Thursday talks. Okay, I also like to welcome all those who are here joining us for the first time. I hope everyone learns a lot, and also that you can continue attending our Thursday talks on a regular basis, right? And okay, I'll just give a brief overview of what the National Coalition of Mental Wellbeing does. All right, this National Coalition was initiated by Rotary, namely the District Action Group on Mental Health Initiatives. And the coalition consists of over 30 to 40 NGOs, various organizations, institutions, and we also have world organizations such as WHO, UN, UNHCR being a part of our team. Our partners in this coalition are, of course, the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Human Resources, Ministry of Education, who work with us in all the projects that we have planned. This is a very big project, actually, that this coalition has trying to take on. And what we have done is that we have divided it into focus groups or task force. We have currently, I think, 10 task force that are being worked on. Of course, the aim of the coalition is to promote mental health initiatives through education, support, and advocacy. But that being said, our main agenda or goal will be, of course, one of the main things will be to see a reduction in the suicide rates in the country. For those who know the statistics, we know that every day in Malaysia, about 5 to 10 suicides either are attempted or people succeed in doing so. Of course, these rates, we want to see these rates come down in the next few years. And this is one of our main goals, I would say. And the other one that we are working on mainly is the decriminalization of suicide. And there's a special task force just working on this, on the area of the decriminalization of the suicide. And of course, the bigger agenda would be to see a reduction in mental health problems in the country in the coming years. So this would be, I would say, that our main goals. I'll also briefly just talk on the different focus groups or areas that we are working on. All right. One of the main ones will be the incorporation of the coalition. Now, the coalition is still very new. I think it's less than a year old. And of course, because of this MCO, we have not registered this coalition yet. There's a team led by Rotarian Mohan, who they are working on getting it a registered body, a legal body. Now, they have submitted documents to the SSM, and they are awaiting, SSM has come back to them on queries on a few things, and now they're working on that. So that's one of the focus groups. And the other one is youth and adolescents. The aim of this task force of the youth and adolescents is to, what we are trying to do is give training to the school counselors. Now, we have a lot of school counselors, but only about 10% of them are actually trained. So what we are trying to do, and the numbers are big, it's about a few thousand that we have. So what we are trying to do is have a training of trainers. So we are looking to train a first batch of trainers, and we have the modules by the MMHA. And currently we have, they have submitted the documents to the Ministry of Education, because any modules or training given by anyone has to go through them, and awaiting their green light. So that's their update on the part of the youth and adolescents. That's the one part of it that they're working. There's other groups that they'll be also coming out on the support for youth and mental health. But we are taking it slow. They're going in batch by batch. All right. And the other one, the third main one, is the psychosocial support and group training. I'm the one who's leading this task force. Of course, we have a few areas that we are looking at. One of it is a module of training on mental health first aid for the frontliners, namely the police, the BOMBA, and even caregivers and parent support group. So there's a team working on that. We are trying to get modules from the WHO. The Ministry of Health has actually come and given us some of the modules that they have. So we are trying to see how we can adapt this to our country and come up with modules for this group of people. What I'm actually working on is training for primary care doctors, namely the GPs in the country. I'm a GP, and I see a lot of patients. Every day I see about 40 to 50 patients, and I can say a bulk of them, when we actually question, there is some form of mental health problems that we see, which has not come to the serious point of depression, but if not, something is not done early, it will lead to that at some point. So what we want to see, and a lot of doctors, actually during our residency, we don't learn much on mental health. So even me as a GP, we see them, but sometimes we lack knowledge on what should we do next, where do we refer them to? And so we are coming up with modules. We have actually come up with a survey first to be sent to all doctors, GPs in the country. We are working with the Malaysian Medical Association. We have sent it to them, a survey about 10 questions, asking them how comfortable are them treating mental health illness, how comfortable are they in recognizing the symptoms of different forms of mental health problems. And now I think we are awaiting MMA to disseminate this survey to all the GPs in the country. So that is the updates on that. And the mental health at workplace, I I haven't got the updates yet. I think the chairman of that, Rajiv, is here. Probably he can give us some updates later on this. And the other main groups are the decriminalization. Now, I just spoke to Mohan. Mohan is also in the task force as a committee member in the decriminalization of suicide. Now, this, what they are coming up with, they are coming up with a press release soon. They have come up with the documents. And this press release will be released, I think, in the next week or two. It's being vetted now before it is released. And the group that is working on this is the AG's chambers. A few of prominent lawyers are also in this group, and they are coming up with papers on that. And of course, there's also a group which deals with the funding, because this project is going to cost us a lot of money. So the funding group is by the Rotary and other organizations. So they will work on the funding part. And we also have the ICT led by Dr. Dixon. And I'm sure Dr. Dixon is, they are doing a lot. I think they are the most active task force currently. They're coming up with these webinars, coming up with the virtual platforms and to tackle mental health problems. And the other area that that focus group is on stigma and decriminalization. They are coming up with awareness programs and strategies to reduce stigma in the country. Now, this, I don't want to take a lot of time. I think we have about 3 to 5 minutes to speak. So this is mainly what we are currently doing. As you can see, there are a lot of organizations with us now. Of course, the main aim was that everyone was doing work by themselves previously. So the main aim of the coalition is to get everyone, and instead of reinventing the wheel, why not all join forces and see where we can, do our work, our part in it. Yeah, that's all. I think I will pass back to Dr. Dixon, I think, yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Monesh, for the updates. And before I introduce to you guys who our moderator for tonight, I would like to check on our crowd for tonight with a simple poll. May I have the first poll for tonight up? I'm going to give you all 1 minute to answer the poll. So let's have the poll up. First poll. And once you're done with the poll, give me a thumbs up. Can I see more thumbs up? I would say this question is pretty interesting, as I came out with it thinking about the youth. And these are lines that I've heard while doing my society work from most of the people that I've worked with. They have encountered all of these lines before. So do let me know what are the lines that you may have encountered during your work with people that has mental health illness. Right? Everyone done? Can I see more thumbs up? All right. I see some thumbs up. Thank you so much for giving me the thumbs up. All right, now I'd like to introduce to you our moderator for tonight. Such a long profile from such an amazing person, for sure. So we have Mr. Terence Hugo Tan. He's a Malaysian social authority trainer, educator, and entrepreneur. As an avid community builder, Hugo is instrumental in the growth of various organizations such as InvestTalks, Math, and One ASEAN. As a certified NLP, life coach, and HRDF trainer, Hugo has trained professionals and key opinion leaders across Southeast Asia to become better leaders, public speaker, and networker. For his service and social projects in Rotaract for the past 8 years, Hugo was named the Outstanding Rotaract of the Year 2019 and 2020. Hugo is recently nominated as the District Rotaract Representative for Rotary Year 2022 and 2023. Hugo has been featured on various media and publications such as Property Queen, TEDx, The Star, Astro Awani, Century Daily, Malaysia Today, and many more. And now I'd like to invite Mrs. Terence Hugo Tan on stage today.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction, Mel. And glad to see all of you here this evening. I mean, it's always a blessing to see all of you gather for such an important cause. I mean, it's 8 p.m. Many of you could be having your dinner, spending time with your family, but all of you are here today, this evening, because for a cause that matters. Just now, I've been seeing the poll results, right? As you can see, many of you over here, you are either a youth, or you are a parent to a youth, or you're working in a line where you are dealing with youth and adolescents daily. You could be a teacher, you could be a social worker, you could be employing youth in your workplaces. And that's the reason why we are here today, isn't it so? Because today is 18th of March, is the first anniversary of our movement control order for fellow Malaysians, right? I just read this like on Facebook like a couple of minutes ago. And so much has changed in a year. And in fact, perhaps the most important thing is that how mental health has come to the forefront. You know, we have this invisible pandemic, all this while without us recognizing it or taking sufficient action to actually rectify the situation. And tonight, we have a panel of esteemed speakers that I would like to introduce to you, starting now. So first and foremost, let's put our hands together for Professor Dr. Philip Josh. Dr. Philip is a consultant psychiatrist and addiction specialist. He's currently the head of psychiatry in IMU. He's also an honorary consultant psychiatrist at Hospital Tuanku Jaffa, a visiting consulting psychiatrist at Assunta Hospital and Mind Faculty. A little bit of fun facts about the background of Dr. Philip Josh would be that he has actually served in the drug and alcohol unit of Canberra Hospital in Australia and as a psychiatrist in Refugee Center in the Republic of Nauru from 2016 to 2019. A very accomplished consulting psychiatrist. Put your hands together for Dr. Philip Josh. Okay, next up, facilitator. We also have with us today, Sharada Segarant, a double degree student currently pursuing her bachelor's in medicine, surgery, and also medical science, the co-founder of Mind Matters Club Network, which we will introduce to you shortly, and of course, the recipient of Queen's Guide Award and the 2 times National Public Speaking Champion. Recently, she has also been serving as a panelist at Girl Force, Unscripted, Unstoppable Forum, alongside Hannah Yeoh. Please put your hands together, give her a thumbs up, Sharada Segarant. Okay, next up, we have our brother here, Mrs. Salahuddin Podel, a final year psychology student at Help University, formerly the chief assistant editor of the Psychronicle, an event coordinator of My Mind on Film, Malaysia's first youth mental health film festival. Some of the videos that you have seen when you are waiting to be admitted, right? And currently he's the research assistant at the Center for Mental Health and Wellbeing. His research being the relationship between liberal perspective and self-harming behavior. And finally, our final panelist for today would be facilitator. Next up, we will have Lee Yvonne, graduate tutor at Help University, co-lead coordinator for My Mind on Film, with a thesis on the relationship between the COVID-19 pandemic and our mental well-being. With this, let's put our hands together and cheer for our panel of speakers. And for the tag team, I would like to first bring on stage Dr. Philip Josh and Sharada Segarant. Welcome, Dr. Philip. Good to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Awesome,
Hello.
awesome. And Sharada, Good to finally see you on screen again. And so, so for all of you who are watching this, right, if you have any questions for our panel over here, feel free to always type in the chat box, right? So before we begin, right, just for the sake for our panelists today, they would love to understand you a bit more, right? Over 100 of you, I think up to 250 of you have signed up today. Okay, if you are a parent, I repeat, if you are a parent, comment 1 in the chat box. Let our panelists know. If you are a parent, comment the number 1 in the chat box. Vidyak Sridevi, Dr. Vinogiri, Suran, DG and Dr. Krishna, Corinne, welcome, welcome. So Yin. We need to have a feel of how many of our parents that are with us today. Definitely you have very fortunate children with the parents committing for such a webinar, right? You know, at the beginning when we have this, people are thinking like, is this webinar, you know, just for young people? Definitely not. Because what happens to young people, you know, affect us as parents, affect us as educators, affect us as lawmakers. Timothy, Raja Gopal, welcome. Okay. How many of you in your line of work deals with youth or adolescents? Comment 2. Comment 2 if your line of work requires you to frequently work with, deal with youth or adolescents. Dr. Philip Josh, first, definitely. Chin Chen, Rash Kumar, welcome. Jiao Yun, welcome. Alka, welcome, welcome. Okay, lastly, how many of you are actually youth or adolescents yourself? Comment 3. Comment 3 if you are a youth or adolescents yourself. Because I'm aware a lot of in-track clubs, road track clubs, and even psychology university clubs are with us today. Amanda, Jennifer, Brittany, Joshua, welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, so without further ado, Dr. Philip, our first question for you today is to set the stage, right? Because maybe you're not aware, but a lot of people have a hard time differentiating what are youth and what are adolescents. So the first question for tonight would be for Dr. Philip. How do we define youth and adolescents? What age group and demographics are we looking at?
Well, it depends where you look for the definition, but essentially adolescence is a transitional phase. It's a transitional phase of growth and development between childhood and adulthood. So it usually starts from puberty and then goes on to adulthood. By WHO's definition, young people are referred to individuals aged between 10 to 24. But there are many other different definitions, and it can also include, you know, when you're a child and dependent to when you become independent. And that can then raise the age because a lot of children are still staying with their parents, doing their undergraduate and postgraduate degrees and not really being completely independent. So adolescence and youth is now protracted to a longer period than it used to be.
Awesome, awesome. And that's very true. In fact, the definition of what youth or belia is for fellow Malaysians, right? It really differs from country to country, right? Recently, we have read the news of how there's an effort to reduce the age of youth in Malaysia to the maximum cap at 35, right? So it has been very fluid, and in most countries, it's not even above 30. So this is the demographic we are dealing with, ladies and gentlemen. If you are watching here tonight, this is the age group we are looking at. So one of the main questions when people see the poster is that youth mental health. I mean, we started with a very general topics like suicide, mental well-being in general. But today we are interested in what are the kind of challenges that are both Sharada and Dr. Philip, you feel that youth had it a bit harder or it is more prevalent among youth and adolescents? Sharada, would you like to begin?
Yeah, sure. Start.
What kind of mental health challenges? Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think mainly one of it that everyone experiences is the lack of awareness. The thing is, they do not know when they need to ask for help and how they actually have to go about doing this. Many people actually battle with anxiety and depression for years without actually understanding the root cause of their sudden mood change or their lack of motivation, or just feeling generally not well. But by the time they actually acknowledge that something is actually wrong and they go and seek for help, which is further on when in their adult days, you realize that the problem has already progressed to a very much later stage, which initially, if it was just anxiety or it was just depression, it could have been stopped at a much earlier stage, but in some cases, it actually sadly progresses until suicide. I know it's an extreme example, but we are not playing around here. When we give perspectives and show where we are actually standing right now with the mental health issues in Malaysia, many people feel at the beginning that it's just a phase. I'm sure many would have heard people throwing statements like, you'll grow out of it, or eventually you get a routine and you become better. Yes, it will become better, but we need the intervention at the right time by the right people. So most of the time, I feel that the biggest issue that youth face is actually acknowledging that problem as it is at the time that an intervention is needed. Prof, would you like to continue?
Yeah, well, I think the most common mental health disorders in youth really the ones that can be intervened and treated. They can actually be, they can actually find recovery from these conditions if they seek help and treatment at an early stage. And as Sharada says, the big challenge is for them to understand and know that this is a problem. The most prevalent disorders are actually depression and anxiety, substance use disorders, eating disorders, ADHD or attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and then even behavioral problems and some personality traits like borderline personality traits.
Okay, I think we kind of get what Sharada is trying to say, right? That all these things can be intervened, at early stage, but we just let it build up and snowball over the years, right? Until it finally reach a very critical stage. You see, there is a very limited study by Yap and Lau, right? It's a very limited, small sample size, but it's also very alarming in that 50% of the respondents believe that the sufferer are to blame for their condition, and up to 80% believe that there is no such thing as mental health problems. Why do you think so, Dr. Philip? Why is this such a misconception?
I mean, that study itself is, evidence of the taboo, prejudice, and stigma that mental health has in developing countries like ours. In fact, there are many problems or factors that actually trigger a mental health problem. And some of them are very often, or at least most of them, are not in the control of the person who is a sufferer. Things like genetics. You can't blame a person with a mental health problem for the genes that they're carrying. Or poor parenting skills. Who do you blame for that? If the parents don't take responsibility and say, I need to build my skills in bringing up my child in a way that they are resilient and protected from developing a mental health problem. And schools that don't emphasize mental health, who do you blame for that as well? So I think it's, it's careless and irresponsible to blame everything on one, that the individual who has the problem is the one to blame, because we know there are multiple factors. And we need to, identify these factors, but also identify this person as someone who needs help and can recover from their problem.
Definitely. I think a lot of people, Prof, they don't understand the factors, that affect, someone's mental health. It's not all just social influences, or psychological. Sometimes it's just purely biological, and people do not dare to admit to it, right? And if you look at the poll just now, many of you have said that people have told you to just let it go. Or if you look at the name of our talk today, don't call me a snowflake. Some people ask me, right, Hugo, like why snowflake? The reason is because if you just do a simple Google search, right, you will see how people perceive youth of today. We are talking about the millennials, we are talking about the Gen Z. They are telling them that these are strawberry generation, they are the tofu generation. They are snowflakes. They are weak. They are not as tough as before, So they are complaining over little stuff that we had it harder. As a youth yourself, Sharada, what do you have to say to that? What are the most hurtful things you have heard yourself?
I think the conversation here is actually not about which generation had it tougher. It's not a competition of who has had it tougher and has gone through and survived. Each generation has their own challenges and the own things that they have dealt with. What they would have dealt with at that time is undeniably their challenge at that time. But this generation faced a different kind of pressure from the society to say. Social media would be the best example of the current pressure that our generation faces, which was probably not felt by the other generations. The need to have everything picture perfect is actually a craze that has gone around in this generation. Everyone wants to have the perfect life. They want to portray their best on social media. But what everyone doesn't seem to get is that when everyone posts on social media, they're not just posting their journey. It's their best. It's their best moments, their best picture. Out of 100 pictures in the gallery, you're only looking at that one picture. So the blind spot is not actually being seen by the rest. And while this might not seem like a great issue to the older generation, this has actually caused so much pressure. And in fact, it's one of the leading causes of depression and anxiety among today's generation. So I feel that there is no use in comparing and telling that they had it tougher or we had it tougher. At the end of the day, we're trying to solve the issue, which is mental health. And mental health these days has got so much awareness that people are creating. People are now able to recognize the symptoms. They know what is actually wrong. So in my opinion, I feel that most cases in the older generation probably were not actually diagnosed. So it's not to say that this generation is suddenly coming up with so many mental health diseases. It's just that in this generation, we are able to acknowledge the disease and we're actually looking for interventions and treatments to solve the problem. So in my opinion, I feel that right now we're actually solving the problem. So then as the numbers come up, sometimes it's a good thing. More people are actually stepping up and they're actually acknowledging about this issue, that it's actually a problem and something is being done about that. What do you think, Prof?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think you're completely right in saying that perhaps awareness is more, and so now we're picking up these problems much more than we used to before. We know there is a huge body-mind link. So if you don't look after your mental health, you are at risk of now developing diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and cancer, and the numerous other chronic medical conditions. Now, just because parents or the older generation think I never had a mental health problem, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, because it can portray itself in a different way when they get a little older and they're suffering from some other medical problem. So, I think awareness is important and acceptance. The other is expectations, as you mentioned. It's not just social media alone, but sometimes it's from families. When the child is brought to see their grandparents and, dad says, look, grandma will give you the best advice possible. And all grandma says is you got to be the top of your class. And you're average and you're trying your best to cope with that. Of course, your parents don't tell you you have to be the top of the class, but somebody has already instilled this in you. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the immediate family. It can be messages from, the community as well. So, yeah, I think there are many different factors that are making it harder for people to actually deal with issues that are becoming more common as well. But the other thing is also we're focused too much on the grades and not on the EQ. And the IQ is the most important in most families. It becomes the basis of identifying a person's worth and not how they fit in with the community and with themselves. I think that's a real big loss. And I feel that schools and others should be involved in actually developing that EQ part.
Definitely. I think Dr. Philip actually raised an important point, the importance of EQ. So much has been said about IQ, about your grades, how competent you are at your compared to your peers, right? And I love what Sharada has mentioned about social media, right? When you post a picture, people post their best. No one posts their worst. And what is more shocking is that if we look at what has happened in the, not too long ago, let's say what happens within these 3 months, right? So we have a girl that did a makeup, like live stream, just like this, did a makeup live stream. And people were basically cyberbullying her. because saying she's not pretty, so on and so forth. And recently there is another social media influencer that she kind of fumbled when she played the piano during a live stream, just like this, right? I mean, there is no filter. I mean, if you're, sometimes we panic and stuff like that, right? So she's a classical pianist and she unable to play a piece properly, right? And it actually affected her so much that she stormed out of the live stream. And she actually recently posted another photo of her actually trying to hang herself, because of that. So what happens in this generation is that every tiny little thing has been magnified because our lives are basically public. There's no privacy. Everything is on Facebook, Instagram. I can know when is your birthday, who is your family, what is our wins and losses. Which leads us to these statistics that we posted in Facebook recently, right, by U Government. It's actually quite recent. It's a 2019 study. It says that 26% of those surveyed, we are talking about youth over here, admitted to having experimented with self-harm. So we are talking about 26% of the respondents actually have tried to harm him or herself before, right? And it's also not exactly shocking because I have friends around me. Doesn't matter whether it's this guy or lady, they have all experimented with self-harm, in one way or another, which is very odd. So what do you have to say for that, Dr. Philip? What is it that triggers someone to basically harm him or herself?
It's something that I commonly see in my practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's when people reach a dead end, trying to find support and help for themselves, and they can't cope, and that's when they think about self-harm. But it's because they also lack some of the skills that that are required when you make the transition as a child to an adult. And these skills are not, on a textbook or actually not taught in books and, taught in schools. And unfortunately, they should be the purview of most parents, but most parents are quite busy. And so, they're left on their own devices. Some turn to their peers, some turn to social media to look for how do you cope with these things. Now, if you look at social media, there are millions of sites teaching you how to self-cut and self-harm and suicide. But there are only about a few thousands that actually teach you how to prevent suicide. So, the reliance on, for help, I think should change. And that should start with the family unit. That should start with the community. That should start with schools. That should start with acknowledging and understanding that children moving from, being dependent to being independent is the most stressful period of their lives. And how much we actually invest in building their stress skills will determine how they cope with that whole transition and that period of change.
Very poignant point by Dr. Philip, because it's definitely a transitional stage, for many adolescents and youth. They are getting into new environments, away from their parents, into new social groups and into the workplaces. And truth be told, one thing I realized is that in schools, right, I think, let's say, like 10, 15 years ago, I never quite realized there's any component of mental health education. If you think about this, right, there has been something called PE. There is a physical education component, and we are supposed to learn about history, about physics. But how about our mental and emotional well-being? Where is that component? Where is that subject? Where is that module? It's very surprising. When you just think back, right? I've never learned this in primary, in kindergarten, in secondary, in high school, in university. It just doesn't exist. And I would like to take some of the questions from our viewers here. For those of you who are watching on Facebook or Zoom, as you are watching right now, do know that I see your question. I see them. And right now, I'm going to pick some of you for our panels to answer. So question number one would be, this is by email. I got to pick yours first, right? You're very dedicated to email us. You have a family member who during MCO had a big quarrel with her siblings. After this, she stayed to herself. She sleeps the whole day. She closed out herself from communication, doesn't even wake up for work. Is this a sign of depression? How do we diagnose this, Dr. Philip?
Yeah, I mean, typically in depression, most people can have a reclusive sort of approach. They become, sort of socially isolated and avoid others, and sort of become inward looking. I think the important thing is for people who are close to her to allow her to know that they are available, that they're there for her if she needs. To also give her self-help, sort of lines or, contacts that she can utilize. There's, in this day of the World Wide Web, there's so many different sites that are helpful and useful for people who have mental health problems. There are even apps that people can download to help themselves to, get better as well. Of course, they need to be the legit ones, the ones that we recommend and suggest. So ones from the universities and from and national NGOs would be very beneficial for her to understand her condition and a problem. There are questionnaires that actually can help people understand themselves and then know where to look for help. So we have actually lists of places that people can seek help for their mental health problems that are provided with the Malaysian Mental Health Association website, the Malaysian Psychiatric Association website. So there's many different areas that can support this as well. I think, importantly, the sooner she's told that she, is being supported, that people are available and they can, even accompany her to see someone for help, the better it is for her to, understand and, be able to feel to be able to look for the help that she requires as well.
Definitely, I think as family members, as friends, we should always be aware of the behavioral changes of the people that we care about, And okay, I would like to follow with another question. I think this is possibly a different multi-generational behavior. So from Kanagas, right? Kanagas came across families where their young adults are constantly locked up in their rooms. They don't really interact much with their family, only coming home for lunch and dinner. Is this a sign of depression? Okay, this is an interesting one. What do you say, Dr. Philip?
Well, I think we shouldn't jump to conclusions here. I mean, this transition period is also trying to be independent.
Mm-hmm.
And, from being all the time with the parents and completely dependent on them and, all the cuddly hugs and everything else, children, when they become youth, want to be more on their own and independent and have their own peers. And so that could be them trying to find their space. But it's important to maybe have some, house rules. We have meals together, we do this together, we, maybe have watch a movie or show together. We have our family time. And one of the best ways for parents to actually build that relationship as children are growing is to actually engage in activities that both sides enjoy. And exercise is a very good example. So if you're going, exercising together that you started since, you had, when they were a child, it becomes a routine. It becomes, something that, naturally occurs regularly. And during exercise together with families, you can actually open up and talk, because that's the best time when you can actually communicate with your children, with their next generation as well.
Definitely some very handy tips over there by Dr. Philip. Basically, you need to have some sort of family rituals that all of you do together, especially something that is of common interest and it's also healthy, like sports. Definitely set aside some time, a safe space for them to confide in you. So before we proceed further, right, with questions on youth, I would like to bring on two more youth. So love the tech side support to bring on Yvonne and Salah to the panel. Welcome, Yvonne.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Let's wait for Salah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us today.
Welcome, Salah.
Yeah,
I have
sure.
spotted Dr. Nagia in the audience. It has been a couple of years, Dr. Nagia. Good to have you here with us. Okay, so let's just proceed here. So we have some questions on youth, right? So first and foremost, the question I would like to ask is, where do youth seek help, right? Just now there's a question in the chat box. right, by Ling Eng Hui, right? Okay, the question is, why is it that when youth requires help, they do not go to the school counselors or teachers? Why do they feel more comfortable confiding in their peers or even posting, all this? If you are aware, every university have some sort of confession forums, where they post stuff about their study challenges, their relationship heartbreaks. It seems that all these anonymous confession pages where they post stuff to seek for help online is much more popular than going to the counselor's room. Why is that so, Sharada?
One of the main reasons youth actually tend to do that is because they feel that the moment they actually have to go and meet the counselor, firstly, they are already acknowledging that there's actually a serious issue. So many try to play around the field where they know that something is wrong, but they're still in the denial stage. They're hoping it's nothing serious, something that'll just go off by time. So giving that time, during that time, if they feel they can speak to their peers about it or just post it online, where they're actually seeking help, but at the same time, they're not actually serious about it. So they're still in a joking way. So in case someone decides to help them and be like, maybe you might be having depression, or you should see a psychiatrist or a counselor, they might just laugh it off and say, no, it was just a joke, just to play it off. They're not there yet to commit themselves to something more serious. Another reason why they tend to do this is because youth tend to like the anonymity of the situation where they don't actually have to register themselves. There'll be no records. Many people are scared that in the future, that would actually come back to them in a way where 10 years from now, they're afraid that someone might look at them and bring up a problem that was there in the past. It's coming back to the stigma actually in our society, which I'm sure Yvonne and Salah would like to explain a bit more about.
Please do, Yvonne. Salah?
I think something that Shada brought up about anonymity kind of reminded me of one of the events that we held for My Mind on Film. And it's called Heart to Heart. So basically it's like a bunch of strangers gathering together and just talking. And I feel like the reason it worked so well was the fact that these are a bunch of strangers. They can spill what's in their heart and they don't have to worry about it being carried on. And I think it is really true that like with youth, the reason why they turn to the internet so much is because of how anonymous you can be and how you don't really have to be in some way responsible for what you say. Yeah, I don't know, Salah, do you want to add on anything?
Yeah, I agree with all the points. But one thing is actually is the stigma around it. And the moment, I mean, when you're talking to your peers, it's nothing serious. You can joke around and be cool. But the moment you go to a counselor and you have this label upon your shoulder that he's going to counseling, he's going to therapy, there is something wrong with him. Well, what if it's something wrong with me? But that label is actually kind of troublesome to the youth. And it actually came up when we were talking to adolescents. We had an event, and that was actually one of the issues. They were afraid of being labeled as vulnerable and weak. So that, I believe, is like one of the very prevalent challenges when it comes to why youth or like adolescents seldom go to counseling or seek help, as in professional help like therapy or other services.
Well said, well said. The reason why I ask this question is because I know a lot of organizations and even mental health organizations that are present here today. They are very interested in how we can strengthen the counselors, how we can create peer support groups. But I think the youth need to be consulted more often on which manner that it can be done effectively. Sometimes we do good things with good intentions, but it doesn't reach the desired demographic, right? Which
so
brings
if I
us.
can add, Terence, actually, we did a survey of youth in a college nearby and identified that they had most likely better mental health literacy than adults did, than older people did. They knew what the common disorders were. They knew what the what I call disability and issues were, and what treatments were recommended for these conditions. But when they were asked what was their preference in seeking help for their own mental health problem, it was to look for something online and never a face-to-face or, somebody that may, know them or, spread the word around or let everyone else know. So if you have a counselor in an institution, sometimes that'd be the last person that a youth with mental health problem will go and see. Sad to say.
Indeed, it's very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Again, when I look at the studies on the mental health situation of youth and adolescents locally, it's rather limited. But from what limited studies we have, we roughly know there are about, say, 400 to 500,000 youth and adolescents that are actually have some form of mental illness in Malaysia. That's a significant number, where 1 out of 5 of them reported they are depressed, 2 out of 5 reported they are anxious, right? And 1 out of 10 reported they are definitely stressed out, and 1 out of 6 reported they are victims of bullying. So the numbers are there, and it's a staggering number, yet, we have a lot of information campaigns, we have celebrities, nice posters, nice slogan, but it's a question of how to reach out to youth. And I'm actually reading a lot of your chat box over here, and I'm going to tackle many of them right at our Q&A section, right? And right now, I would like to ask and direct a question to our panelists over here, right, the youth panels, because both of you have actually started something to reach out to youth. Sharada, you have started Mind Matters Club together with Dr. Philip, right? And Yvonne and Salah, you have part of the Center for Mental Health and Wellbeing, where one of the projects is My Mind on Film. Okay, so I will give an opportunity for MMOF. Perhaps you would like to explain what do you hope to achieve and how is the reception on this Youth Mental Health Film Festival? Any takers, Yvonne, Salah?
All right. Okay, since Yvonne's smiling like that, it's a clue for me to start. All right. Okay. Like a few objectives were very important to us in our Mind and Film. It was to recognize that mental health is actually universal, and it does include the positive. Because when you hear the word mental health, it's like, okay, it's all about disorders, it's all about like depression and anxiety. Nobody includes the positive psychology in it, which is actually like a huge part of the contemporary practical psychology that we have today. The other objective that we had was to actually initiate a conversation, which is very, very much needed, especially in Malaysia. Like, I personally believe when you don't start to converse about something, you don't have the language for it yet. Why is it so easy to discuss all these psychological matters, mental health, well-being matters in English, but not in other languages? Because all our sources are in English. People who discuss it are English people. But when it comes to other cultures, and you want to like convey a message which you've heard in a seminar or like in a gathering of English-speaking people, you can't really convey it properly in other languages. Let's say like Malay or like Chinese or Persian, just because the conversation hasn't been there. The moment you start talking about something, it builds its language gradually within the culture. So that was another aim that we've been pursuing. And last but not the least, been to battle the stigma that's around mental health here. Wherever mental health is new, especially in developing countries, third world nations, we have this stigma upon it because like it's something new. People are not yet fully educated on what it is. So the moment you go to counseling, you're labeled as like a weak, vulnerable. If a man, cries, like it's not masculine. If a girl starts, studying engineering, or things that are usually labeled as like masculine areas of studies, then like we kind of like why this, why can't you like go and be a teacher or like a nurse or so these three were actually the main objectives of my Mind and Film Festival so far.
Thank you, Salah. Of course, I'm also waiting for the cue from Tech, to play one of your award-winning mental health film. And sure. I think it's a very quick one. Dr. Dixon, is it ready? Good to go? Let's give some time for Dr. Dixon to prepare. Yeah, while he will alert me. So at the meantime, Sharada and Dr. Philip, would you like to share with us what is Mind Matters Club and how does one actually be part of it?
Maybe I'll go first, Sharada.
Yeah, sure, bro.
Well, I think about 4 years ago, I came up with this idea of creating a club run by students for students. Because we've had, several different workshops, talks, and seminars discussing mental health among students. And we realized that not many of them were interested when it was us running the show or, inviting people in. And so we thought, the peers should help themselves. And that's when we created the Mind Matters Club, and it's gone and it's grown from then. In fact, we've had several short films created by the Mind Matters Club of IMU in the last 4 years. But yeah, Sharada, maybe you'd like to get in a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So to everyone who's present today, Mind Matters Club is a peer mental health group that aims to promote good mental health among students of the Educational Institute. Through collaboration with our partners such as Aflatun and a few others actually under the National Coalition, MMC is dedicated to compile a mental health toolkit, something like a comprehensive curriculum that you'd say, that utilizes new approaches to resources and supports available to students. So we've realized that over the years, every club comes up with some sort of activity. They do it, it's successful, then it's over. But the issue is that there's no lasting outcome from these events. Most of the time, it's a one-off event, and after that, there's no follow-up from it. At the end of the day, the long-term goal is not achieved because the child still does not know where to go to get help. So what we're trying to do here is to focus on creative student-led solutions and advocacy by youth for youth using evidence-based tools. So the modules that we are going to use are those that have already been created by Harvard and they've already got approval. And we're coming up with even more activities from events that have already shown results. We are no longer going to come up with events that have not been tried at all or one-time games. Everyone knows now that mental health is an issue that needs to be addressed. What we're trying to do here is to provide an intervention. So if a child comes today with a mental health issue, we will know how much is it that the peer support group can help, how much is it when a professional needs to step in, and when is it actually the time to send the child out from the school or the institute to go and seek for help. There should no longer be a query when a child needs help, how the child should go to get the help, and how the cost should be covered. Mental health issues should become an issue just like any other health issues. If you're having heart pain or if you're having leg pain, something that people can see, it's addressed and something's being done about it, the same way and the same importance should be given to mental health. And that is what we strive to do here. We are trying to normalize it to an extent that we can speak about mental health freely. Yes, I'm going to see the counselor today. So what? There should no longer be a judgment about it. There shouldn't be oh, she's meeting the counselor. It should be like, yes, she's going to meet the counselor now. No one needs to hide to go see a counselor. That is something that we're working on and we hope to achieve. Currently, we're coming up with a pilot project. It's going to involve 12 schools and institutions for a term of 1 to 2 years. And throughout this duration, we're going to have professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists helping us from the coalition itself to make sure that whatever events that's carried out has already been accredited. At the same time, we are going to actually give youth the freedom to carry out the activity. We have realized that the best way to reach youth is through youth themselves. It's no longer going to be the professionals carrying out the activities and the youth just following or just attending the event. They are going to come up with the event. They are going to do something that they know is going to be effective and will be able to help others as well. So that's what we aim to achieve through our Mind Matters Club. And after the pilot project, hopefully we'll be able to have Mind Matters Club all over Malaysia too. Thank you.
Definitely, I think that's the ambition that we need to know, right? And I think the point of tonight is to help people understand youth and adolescents a bit better. But at the same time, to let everyone knows that a youth problem is not something that youth themselves can fully solve. It takes everyone to come together. We are all stakeholders, in our youth and adolescents. We always tell them that they are the future leaders of the nation, but we are not investing enough in them. We are not paying enough attention to them, and right now, let me share with you what is going to happen in the next 30 minutes. We are going to give you like a short preview. We are not going to play the whole video. We're going to play like a minute of the award winning by My Mind on Film. All these youth has come from, high school, colleges. They come together, for film festival with a lot of important people coming to watch them, to evaluate, so that they can send out this message, right? That's Malaysia's first youth film festival for mental health. And after that, we actually have a secret guest, right? That a youth himself that is going to share on his mental health challenges. And I know there's a lot of very pressing questions in the chat box as well. We are fully aware. And I hope the viewers on Facebook and on Zoom, when you read all those questions that is on the chat box, just remember, these are very brave people that are willing to share their questions. And there are a lot more out there that are not willing to type even in the chat box. They are not willing to voice their questions. They are suffering in silence. They could be friends around you. They could be your own child. So with this, I would like to invite Dr. Dixon to perhaps play a minute of the award-winning film. Thank you.
Hey, I've been feeling some way, I'm just gonna leave it at that, about my phone and social media for some time ago, and I decided I would make a poem out of it. It starts like this. The rectangular screen of light lights up the darkness, but that isn't the only light that shines on my face. I feel not hope, not dread, but a faint sense of bleakness. Today's a new day. Another day in the rat race. The rectangular light blinks and vibrates. It beckons me. Come to me, it says. I need to tell you all the amazing things people are doing. Resist me not, for staring at me blankly shall bring you glee. The light did tell me of how productive everyone is, the successes in life, the dreams they are pursuing. People are showing how hard they are studying, how hard they are working, how much they are achieving. I bask in the light of the need to fight, to get busier and busier, although it makes me dizzier and dizzier. Some days it overwhelms me. I'll just let myself go to waste. I'll be lazy, be drowsy, with no sense of haste. I'll beat myself up afterwards, of course, with the internal dialogue in my head. You're worthless, of course. Productivity? Never in your head. So that pretty much sums up what I've been struggling with for quite some time. I think it mainly comprises of two things: upward social comparison with internet strangers and feeling excessively guilty for not working hard enough due to the hustle productivity culture constantly showcased online. I think I also had some problems with dichotomous thinking, wherein I believe that, if people on the internet my age can already afford to live independently or buy their own car, I was considered a failure because I still can't do that at that age. Thankfully, I realized that this was not a healthy way of thinking. My family and friends had given me some great advice, so shout out to them. I now spend less time on my phone and I try to adopt a healthy mindset when I see a stranger online achieving great things. Instead of thinking, Oh my gosh, I still can't do that. I am
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. I'm sure facilitator will be posting the link where you can watch the rest of the video. I think it's very commendable. A lot of video submissions, that is being submitted, just to spread the message. So before we bring in our surprise guest sharing, right? The question of the role of media in mental health, right? The role of media. You see, there is a lot of dramas and movies that portray mental health, some accurately, some not. And one of those that are being mentioned a lot because it's very popular among youth is the Netflix series, 13 Reasons Why. Right? It actually glorifies suicide. For those of you, many of you who have not watched this, personally, I've not watched it as well. But the plot point of it is that a young lady